So what's a cockpit drill and how does that fit into our prime concern of safety when driving? So a cockpit drill is really to make you familiar with the car that you're driving. Now, most of the time, I recognise that people will be driving the same vehicle day in and day out, but some people do swap between vehicles, and it's important when you actually get into the vehicle to understand which one you're actually driving and all of its capabilities. This is especially important where we have the time when we're hiring vehicles. So you may be hiring a vehicle within the same country, or you may be hiring a car when you're away on holiday. But each car will have its own different characteristics, and you need to be aware of those before you actually set off on your journey. So the types of things that I'm talking about is the type of car. How is it fueled? Is it a petrol vehicle? Is it a diesel vehicle? Or is it an electric vehicle? Because each one will have different characteristics. Again, is it front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, or have you hired an all-wheel drive vehicle because you want to go off-road or onto more challenging roads when you're abroad? You need to know the power that's available to you in terms of brake horsepower, and whether you've got a manual vehicle or an automatic vehicle. Now, with a manual vehicle, you need to know how many gears you've got available to you, and especially where reverse is, because it is in different places on different gearboxes. And you want to know that before you actually set off on your journey. If you've got an automatic gearbox, then what type of gearbox is it? Is it a DSG? Is it a DCT? It's important to understand because, again, they will have different characteristics. And then, and increasingly important in these days, what technology is available within that car? Now, there will be some sort of standard ones now, like anti-lock braking, but a lot of other cars will have things like lane departure warnings, they will have blind spot indicators, and all of these you need to be aware of before you actually set out on your journey. So as an example of this, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through a cockpit drill for the car that I'm actually driving now. So starting now, the cockpit drill would be, I'm about to drive a Mini Clubman Cooper S, which is a 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine which develops a maximum of 192 brake horsepower to the front wheels using a 7-speed Steptronic automatic sports transmission with double clutch. Now, I have paddles available to me in this car for changing gear in the automatic box, but I also have a central control column where I can select the gears, and by depressing a button on the side of the gear stick, I can actually put it into manual mode and use either the paddles or this central column to change gear. This car has got cruise control, a speed limiter, an anti-lock braking system, dynamic stability control, and an automatic handbrake which releases on use of the accelerator. So the car's got 3 driving modes. It's got a standard or comfort mode, which it will start in. If you don't do anything, it will actually continue in that mode. It's got a sports mode, which tightens the steering, firms up the suspension, and makes the accelerator more responsive. And it's got a green mode, which regulates the fuel and actually makes the accelerator not as responsive. It also dulls down the actual air conditioning in the car. It's important to understand the green mode because it will affect your driving. And those controls are actually selected via a toggle switch that's down in the centre column. Going around the actual car to make myself familiar with the controls, I've got an electronic handbrake, which is on. I've got my gear lever, which is in parked or neutral. I've got my seat, which is set up for me. It's a comfortable distance from the controls. I can check my distance to the steering wheel by placing my wrists on top of the steering wheel, and I've got a nice bend in my arm when I'm actually driving, which is comfortable for long distances. Now the mirrors, the left mirror, the rear view mirror and my right mirror are all clean and good visibility, and by using the mirrors I can actually check down the side of the vehicle to make sure that the doors are closed. I'm now going to put on my seatbelt, and I'm going to give it a good tug to make sure that it will restrain me in the event of an accident, and I will release it to make sure it releases okay. Now at this stage, if I had any passengers in the vehicle, I'd make sure that they have got their seatbelts on and that they knew how to operate them. So now I'm going to go to the first stage ignition on this car, which is depressing a button. And I expect all the warning lights to come on, and then the warning lights to go off, with the exception of the engine management light and the parking brake. The engine's not started, obviously. So now I can check my pressure on the foot brake, and it's all satisfactory. I can feel there is good pressure. And now I can look at the position of the other controls in the vehicle. So on the left hand side of the steering wheel I have controls for the indicators, and on the right hand side I have the controls for the windscreen wipers, both front and rear. Now down to the left of the dashboard I have the lighting controls. So the lighting is at the moment set on automatic. I can put it on to either dimmed headlights or full headlights, and I have controls to level up my headlights and also change the brightness of the control display. This vehicle also has a lever on the left hand side of the steering wheel which would allow me to raise or lower the steering wheel and adjust its rake both forward and backwards. So I hope you can see now that I have now made myself completely familiar with all of the auxiliary controls in this vehicle, and that's the end of the cockpit drill. Now obviously the cockpit drill, if you are totally unfamiliar with the vehicle, you should run it through it completely, as I have done. But if you are doing a cockpit drill on your daily drive, then it might not be quite as extensive. So I've hoped that's helped. If it has, then please give me a like. And if you want to be informed of future videos, all related around road safety and advanced driving techniques, then please consider subscribing to the channel, and you'll be notified when the next videos become available.